Hello YouTubers, fellow subscribers. Today I'm going to do a handlebar wrap session here. One of our subscribers had requested this a little while ago, and I finally got a chance to go ahead and make a video of it. This will cover how to wrap your bar at a professional quality level. And so I'm going to focus on all the details involved that other people kind of rush through on some of the other videos that are already out there. So this will be something that will be linked in our maintenance video playlist. So whenever you need to do your DIY, you can refer to it. All right, YouTubers. My challenge has been trying to find an angle that would best show you guys what I see when I wrap bars. And so I've settled on this view. This is the left side, the non-drivetrain side of the bar that my hand's touching. I decided to put the camera at an angle so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. And I'm hoping that this will work. I tried it behind me, in front, and it basically gives you an inverted view, and I feel that this will probably be the best thing to do. But basically, before you wrap the bars, I mean, these bars happen to have, I've already removed the tape and everything. You have to make sure, for one thing, that your cables are properly secured on the bar. You can see here, I'm using, these are the kind of tape I use. I don't use electrical tape to hold my cables underneath because they just don't hold as well. These are like shipping tape. They have fibers in them that really hold really well. And that's what I use to hold my tape. I mean, my housing, my brake housing under here. That makes a big difference in keeping the housing in place. This bar has routing channels under there, and that's where I run mine. Some bars have them in different spots. But you have to make sure that your housing is properly secured, as you can see there, so that it's in position and you're not gonna feel it through your tape once you're done. That's kind of what I wanted to show. So I'm gonna put the camera back here. And after you've done that, you basically move your brake hoods out of the way. I'll pull that back. Just get that out of the way because that will go over the tape when you're done. Now, a lot of these come with what we call cheater pieces of tape. They're two little pieces of tape. I don't really use them, but they basically go right here to cover the clamp here on the brake lever. I don't use them. I use what is called a figure 8. You can use them if you want. I choose not to use them because I don't really need them with the figure 8. So I throw them away. I mean, you can put them there. It's not that big a deal. It's really your call. But what I'm doing today, I'm gonna do a figure 8 wrap, which you don't really need those tapes for. I'm using a leather tape, so it's a little more challenging because it's not as stretchy, but the process is the same. So you start with your tape, and your goal down here is to put your tape halfway. The adhesive should be like halfway on the bar, like I'm doing here. So I'm gonna go this way. Halfway, so half of the tape should flip over the bar, because that's what you're gonna push in to use your bar end plug when you're done. Okay, so make sure you just take the center of the tape to start your wrap. So I'm starting here, this is the end of the tape, and I'm just gonna place it halfway. So half of the tape can go in the bar. And you wrap to the outside. Do not wrap towards the bike. Wrap away from the bike. So my wrapping here is going away from the bike, as you can see here. And the reason you do that is, as you ride, your hands normally do this, away from the bike. So you will continually tighten your tape as opposed to loosening it. So as I go around, I'm starting my wrap now. You can see it halfway already. I've pushed that in on the bottom. A lot of times, it will hang over. You don't have to worry about it. As long as you got half of it hanging over the bar, that's what the bar and plug will push in. But I'd already pushed that in before because this bar had been wrapped before and I had some work to do, so I unwrapped it to do this video. So as you wrap, the key is wrap the same distance on each time you go around. So don't wrap 3/4 of the way on the old tape, then the next turn you do halfway. You got to be consistent so it looks good. So what I'm doing here is I'm wrapping about probably, I would say 25% of the one that's already there is what I'm gonna cover. So I bring my wrap over here. You can see more than half of this tape is covered. It's hard to see because they're all black, but you can see this marking right here. So that's the distance I'm gonna keep on each wrap, so it's consistent. I'm wrapping away from the bike, and I'm keeping the tape nice and tight. You don't have to pull it with a death grip, but you don't want it to be loose. You want it to be tight because it helps you go around the curves of the bars. A lot of manufacturers will say, don't pull the tape. What they mean is, don't take all your power and pull on the tape. You just want it taut. So all I'm doing is pulling it around. You can see right now it's starting to take shape. Let me bring this a little closer. It's starting to take shape. I'm going around. And you see I'm using my thumb to hold right there. Then I transfer this finger there as I pull so it does not unravel. I want to keep the stretch that I'm gaining. And if you look at the tape now, look at the distances here. I'm trying to keep them consistent. You just have to make sure you have enough material. You don't need to go never go halfway on the tape. There's no reason. You just want the last 25% of the tape that's already on there to be covered by the new one you're wrapping around. And then always look when you come in the curve, and move the camera over here a little bit. When you come in the curve there, you want to look under here and make sure that you don't have any kind of like a bowing of the tape or a bulge that you miss. You got to really, you see right here, well, we got that little right there. You got to watch for those. Bring this over here like that. This is the toughest area because that's your hooks. So you see how I'm pulling it the way it's laying down right here? That's important. And then I keep my finger on there. I bring it around. See? Now I got it nice and smooth there. This is one of the biggest areas people mess up. I'm still using my thumb on this side. You can see right here to keep the tape in place as I pull it and I pull through. Now, to do the figure eight, when you get under here, you can see I'm leaving a little bit of a gap here, right there. That's important because you're gonna close that gap later. So now I'm bringing it on the inside here. Bring the camera over, right here. You can see, I'm gonna bring the camera back here so you can see what I see. So right there, I'm gonna go across. Let me move up, pick up the whole bar. There we go. Okay, I'm going across. This is where the figure eight starts. Going up and over. Up and over, and make sure you're not covering anything that your hoods may need to lay into. Some hoods have holes that they need to go into. You gotta make sure those holes stay clear. Like down here on the bottom here, there's a little hole there, don't cover it. On the inside, whatever your hoods need to go into to stay in place, you don't cover that. But basically you catch the edge of your brake hood up here. I'm going over. Then I'm gonna come around. See that? So I came over on this side. Let me turn this way so you can see. Have a challenge there. So over from the other side and there. See that? Join the other tape. Then I'm going back under. And this is where you close all these little holes that the cheater tape tries to close. So when I come over right here, your goal is right there. See that? See that gap? I'm basically covering that with the tape. Right there. That's the figure eight. And then back across. I'm going to move the camera and show you what I do on that side. Yeah, this moved a little bit. I'm going to hold it there. Let me move the camera over here. So on here, you can see I have an the bar is exposed here. Well, this tape will pick it up on this end, like that. And voila. So you don't need that cheater tape. And that's the figure 8. This is a replay of the figure 8 that I'm doing, replay recording. So basically, let's see, pick up that, come over, go across, figure is harder to do with a leather tape. So when the figure 8 is done, I just want to stop here and show you what it looks like. The figure 8 is done, and you can see from this side, you can't see any of the bar. From this side, back up a little bit, turn the bar so you can see the inside. Let's move it right there. So you can see from the inside, no bar is exposed, nothing. Because I used the tape basically and did a figure 8 to wrap it. And that's why I went ahead and did a replay of it so you can see. It's the most challenging part, especially with leather tape that doesn't stretch as much. If you have a stretchy tape, it's a lot easier. So this is the most challenging tape to do a figure 8 with, a non-stretchable kind of tape, like leather like I'm using here. But I wanted to show you what the end result is. So even before putting my hoods down, you can't see any bar exposed. And I didn't use that little piece of tape I talked about that they ship with it that you're supposed to slip on there. You can put it there if you want, but I don't think it's necessary. I never use them. But you can see that all my bar, the bar is obscured by the figure 8. Okay? So it's just a matter of the placement. You have to make sure the first time you come around that, let's move this over here, that first tape needs to come over far enough to where it covers enough of this area down here on the bar. That's the key. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish the wrap. Let's go here. It doesn't mean that the rest of the wrap is insignificant. The same thing continues. And you can see I'm continuing to wrap in the direction of where, like if you were using your hands on the bar, you would be doing like that. So I'm wrapping down. It just works out that way when you start going to the outside. See, anytime you use your hands in the drop, if you normally do that, and that will continue to keep your tape nice and tight. So let me move this over here so my hands are not in the way as I continue. And I'm going to keep the same distance on the wrap, the same overlap. You want to keep the overlap consistent. That's what makes the wrap look good. And I'm keeping it nice and taut. On leather tape, you got to be real careful because they join them at some point. This one has a joint right about there. So when you get to the joint, don't pull too much on the joint. You can pull the tape apart on leather tape. Non-leather tape is not an issue. You don't have any joints. What I do is I probably should go to the front here and get a better view of what I'm doing. Basically coming close. As you can see, I'm getting close to the end of the wrap there. The camera over here. What I try to do is to make sure that the distance is consistent. Let's turn this way. I never wrap my bars all the way to the end. I always leave a gap right here. I try to stay near where the emblem is, and you can see right there on the triple T bar, right about here is where I want to stop. And I basically check everything to make sure I have what I need. At this point, you can put the hood down, but I won't do it right now. I want to focus on this to explain here. So right here, I've already cut this tape. You want to cut the tape to where you're cutting it towards the bike at a 45-degree angle so that the tape can blend. I'm going to hold this up so you can see. There is the cut. So you would be cutting. I'm going to stand this way. I'm facing the bike. and you will be cutting towards your stem. So you'd start and go, you start the end of the tape, and you want that angle to go towards your stem. Let me just cut here and clean this up. I did a cut initially, but I want to clean this up. So you're cutting at a 45-degree angle. So now, if you look at this, the normal tape would be all the way here. You would have tape there to fill in this gap. That's the piece that's been cut. Maybe this way. Maybe I'll step out of the way so you can see. So instead of the tape being all the way up here, where my finger is, all of that's gone. Slice that off towards the stem. So then we come across on your last wrap, it will basically blend with the edge of your other wrap right here. They basically become one, and you don't see any tape. Let me bring this on top. So you don't really see any tape overlapping. It basically blends in with the edge of the tape. I'm going to bring it back over on this side. Okay. You may see it better from the front, because what I'm doing now is basically how to secure the tape. This is the second piece. Other than making sure that your overlaps are consistent, this is the final piece that really makes your tape job look pro. So I take the electrical tape. I never use the tape that comes in the box because they're not strong. They don't have a good adhesive. I always use the like electrical tape, and if you're doing a different color tape, they have all kinds of vinyl electrical tape with different colors that you can get to match your tape if you want. I do black as a simple, low maintenance color. So what I'm doing here is I'm peeling the tape. Now you line the tape up with, let me back this up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. You're gonna line the tape up here. My hands. Hope you can see this. I'm lining the electrical tape up with the tape that was cut. The side that was not cut is going to be my edge. You can decide where you start, but basically the tape lines up. I haven't cut the tape because I've been doing this long enough to where I don't need to, but you can cut it if you want. I usually don't. But you can see now what I've done is I've lined this tape up to where the piece that was cut, it's overlapping, but right now what I'm doing is I lined up the edge of my tape with the edge of the uncut part of the tape. I started a little further back so it would line up. And then you want to make sure you keep the tape lined up directly with, because this part that you cut, let's see, maybe I can bring the camera. Let me pause. So what I'm trying to show here is how you line up your tape with the electrical tape with the piece that you cut. And I think this might be a better view. So what I've done is, let me remove this so you can see. That's your tape. And a lot of times for you guys who are new to this, you may want to just cut some tape. So let me go ahead and do that. It might be easier than keeping that thing on there. So you cut about probably, looks about 4 inches maybe, I'm guessing. You cut enough to where you can do a couple of wraps, a couple of loops. So you can cut the tape, you can stick it here on the stem, let it sit there so it's ready. I'm gonna put this down. But what I wanted to show you is, this is the end piece that I'd cut that way towards the stem. You cut it towards the bike, 45-degree angle. You do your final wrap. I try to stay right next to the logo. And if your tape is too long, you cut out what you need. You cut out before you cut your angle in. So now tape is there, so I'm going to take my electrical tape and I'm going to line it up with the uncut part of my tape, my bar tape. You can see right there, there's the flap that I cut. I'm going to line it up with just the edge of that on the part that is uncut. So the part basically away from the bike. Let's see here. Because what I want to do is I want to keep the tape. Let me do it on this side. So on this end, before you wrap it around, you can do it there. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm taking the tape. I don't want to see the electrical tape when I'm done. So I'm lining it up like this with the edge of the uncut part of this tape away from where you cut. You will have some tape exposed on the side that's cut, and that's okay. You can feel the little stickiness in the part that was cut towards the bike. But this is nice and flush with this tape. It's like you're extending the tape. So then you go with your final wrap. Your last wrap, you come around, and because you cut that piece, this tape on the inside, you can see it, it's going to line up perfectly with the real tape, and the electrical tape will have a bit of an overlap. And so your goal is, what I like to do is have just a little bit of that electrical tape touching the bar. Right there we go. That's what I want. Good view. So you can see I brought the tape over, and now if you see my logo, the triple T logo, 3T right there, I'm right on the edge of it. I like to keep it consistent. And when I do the opposite side, we'll do the same thing. And if you notice, the tape is right on the edge. The electrical tape, I'm pulling, all this time I'm pulling the vinyl tape is important. I'm pulling it. The first wrap around, you pull it. Once you come over, then I'm going to stop pulling at this point, and I'm just going to line it up and let it hang. And the reason you're going to let it hang, I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to cut this to where I don't want the tape to come back far enough to where it will be where my hands get on the bar. I want the tape to end under the bar. So if I were to go another complete round, it would be right where I place my hands. And you never want to do that. You want the electrical tape to end under the bar where you don't touch. So I want it to be about the middle of the bar. So I'm going to cut this much off. And I'm going to let that piece hang. And the reason you let that piece hang is by pulling on the tape, it will draw itself back. If I don't give it a few minutes, I would say maybe 5 minutes or so, for it to draw itself back, and I go ahead and finish that, it will still draw back, but then it will leave adhesive. And you may have encountered it where you're riding and you feel adhesive and you're not sure why. So after pulling the tape to get it nice and tight, I'll leave it open on the last turn here, and I'll let it sit there. Minimum about 5 minutes. That should be enough, and then you can lay it down and you won't have to worry about your tape again. So that's the wrap of this side. And I'm gonna bring the camera over here. And you can see, I just wanna kind of take it around so you can see the wrap. You kind of see how the wrap looks. I mean, everything is nice and neat and it's nice and tight. Okay, I didn't use any kind of Herculean pull on it. It's just a matter of molding it. This was leather, so it was harder, but with a regular tape, it's easy. A non-leather tape is a lot easier than what you saw today. So I'm gonna move the camera to where you can see right there. So now I'm gonna put my hoods down. And my hoods have a spot where they need a hole for it to go in. I did not cover that. You have to look under your hoods. Make sure you don't cover any of the little holes they have for the rubber cover to go into. And that's pretty much, and I did not use the little, what we call little cheater tapes. I did a figure 8. That's it. I'm gonna put my plug in here. And I do line up my plug, depending on where the logo is. I don't know if this will focus, but let me move it back so you can see what I'm doing. But basically, I'm gonna take the logo and line it up. This is Brooks. They switched to rubber instead of cork. And basically, because of leaving half in here, that gives you the traction you need for this plug to stay in place. Now make sure that this is straight, and then I push it in. And voila, nice and tight and clean. That's pretty much, you know, and because it was wrapped in the direction my hands go, it will never come loose. And now it's been long enough, I'm gonna go ahead and now lay down that little piece. The reason I'm taking the time to explain that is very important. And you can see it just kind of laid in place right there. And you don't have to worry about it coming loose. And if you look at this bar from the front, I mean, professionally done. And you can see it's right next to the logo. The logo is not obscured at all. This is where you can put your bike lights or whatever else you want to clip on bars. That's that space you use it for. If you notice, all my cables run all the way up under here. They don't start cutting early. You know, if you got cables cutting too early down here, it gives it a challenge for you to have your tape all the way there. So the person who's setting up these bikes has to keep that in mind. You can see this is the front brake cable. You can see how far this runs over here. It runs up close to the bar and over here across the stem before it curves. That's how you do it. If you're gonna do it yourself, you do it right. Give yourself, the cable needs to be a nice and smooth transition so that it functions well. All of those little details are important. And if you look at the front of the bar now, you can see the logo right there, perfectly placed. The tape's right there. You got enough room for your hands all the way here. Everything's ready to be used. And it drops, you know. And because your hands move in the direction of the wrap, every time you do that, you're actually molding the tape better and better in place. And you can see nothing's exposed, no metal, nothing exposed. That's really important. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. I won't be as detailed on the other side. I took the time to do this side like that so that you would basically see that. So on this second bar, I'm not going to be as thorough in the detail because it's just the opposite of what was done on the other side. So what I'm going to do is basically just state the differences. You're doing the same thing as you did the other side. You're wrapping away from the bike. Always wrap away from the bike because that's the motion you do when you're in the drops. That's what you do. So you want to keep the tape in that direction. We're going to be starting like we did on the other one, halfway. Usually you lay the adhesive right on the edge of the bar. The adhesive is usually placed halfway of the tape. So you take half of the tape just like the other one because you want that other half to be bent into the end of the bars. That's what you're going to use to hold your plug in place. So we're going to start our wrap. We'll come around. You can see I started halfway, come around, cover the tape. Once it's completely covered, then I angle away from the covered area. And that's when your wrap really begins. Again, I'm not using that cheater tape that you place under here. You can do that if you want, but I'm using a figure eight. With a figure eight, you don't need that stuff. So it's optional there. But if you're more comfortable using the cheater tape, the little strap, make sure you cut them to where they fit in the space here to cover the clamp. Okay, don't have them protruding all the way and interfering with your hood closing. My hood has a hole right there. There's a little piece of rubber that goes in a hole. I make sure that's not covered when I do my figure eight. That's important. So you pull. You don't want to put a death grip on it. You just need to keep it taut. You don't need to pull it to where you break the tape. This is not a weightlifting thing. You just want to keep the tape nice and tight around the bar, especially under here in these curved areas. You want to pull, keep it tight. Use your opposite hand to hold it in place like I'm doing. You can see me, I'm working with leather, so I'm actually smoothing it in place because leather's more difficult. On the artificial tape, man-made materials, you don't have to worry about that. They're very easy to stretch into place. So you can see here, these are the most challenging areas to make sure you don't have a bowing of the tape. I like my tape to lie down on the bar. So you can see right there, see right here, if I don't lay it down, it will bow. So I'm gonna pull it across, use my index finger to hold it in place there, and bring it across. The key, I'm gonna stress again, you're doing a figure eight. When you get within about, looks like a half a centimeter, which is about 5 millimeters under the bar, you can see how much room, that's where you begin your figure eight. At this point, now I'm gonna go and start my figure eight because I've got a little bit of a gap. That's all I need to cover. You don't want to go around again and then start your figure eight. You have too much tape in this area. So once you get within 5 millimeters of the brake hoods, I'm going to show it this way. I'm going to go across the brake hood, turn it this way. That's when you start your figure eight. See right there? I'm using my index finger here to hold my leather tape in place. It's a lot easier with man-made tape, so it will not be as difficult as working with leather tape. So you come across, you want to go across here, but you want this first move here to be far enough in to where you don't have too much room to cover. See right here where this tape is? I'm coming far enough in over here to where I have very small area to cover. So you come in, then you go across like that, you come down, and all the time you're keeping the tape nice and stretched. That's important. So you can see right about here, I've already covered my clamp. You can't even see the clamp that much. This goes across the clamp. But I brought this tape far enough over to where I'm covering the clamp. And then on this side, I'm gonna pull it down on the other side of the clamp, right there. Move this over here so you can see. Okay, so now I'm covering this side of the clamp. The clamp is exposed right there, see that? I'm gonna come across the clamp. And now all I got to deal with is that little exposure, which will pick up on the other side. I'm going to come down and over. And I'm moving the bar so you can see what I'm doing. I come down every time, just keeping it nice and tight. And right here, move the camera over here. Right there, see? This is exposed right now. When I come over, it's gone. That covers it. So that little gap you left under here is going to be covered by coming across with this tape underneath there like that. And then on the opposite side when you come across, that's covered when this tape comes over. And then you go up and over. And basically you can stop there and kind of check and make sure everything's covered before you proceed. About this point you kind of want to go back and check everything. Usually about here, I make sure that my tape is not interfering with my brake hood. My brake hood has that little hole that it needs to go into. I make sure that that tape does not cover it. Pull that over. There. I guess what I want to stress here is that you need to make sure that once you're done with your figure eight, no metal is exposed. You can't see the bars, okay? The figure eight can be challenging, but the key is to make sure your first pass, that the tape is close to the brake hood. You keep it close to the brake hood each time you come around. Because if the first time you start your figure eight and your tape is far away from the brake hood, it's just too wide of a gap for the final pass to cover. If you feel that that's too much of a challenge, feel free to use the two little pieces of tape that come with most tape when they ship them. If you use that, then you don't have to do a figure eight. You would just make sure you place them in here and wrap over them as needed because they already hide the clamp. That's the whole reason. I like the figure eight because it's just better. It's one continuous piece of tape. You don't have to worry about anything coming loose over time in there. But a lot of people are more comfortable using that little piece of tape in there. The only difference with the piece of tape is that you don't need the figure eight move if you do the piece of tape. You just cover the edges of it and just keep wrapping. That's the main thing. And you can see I've done the figure eight. There's nothing exposed. And I make sure that my brake hoods, where they need to clip into, are fine. You always check that before you finish your wrap. Once you pass that area, just look and make sure. Because you don't want to finish and tape and everything and then see that things are loose. And so once that area is done, you continue your wrap. And as I explained before, if you start to the outside, when you come to the top, you will be wrapping away from the bike that way. And when you're riding on the hoods, on the tops, that's how your hands work the tape, just naturally. So everything's in the direction of any movement you're going to do in the future. Because if you don't do that, you can basically work your tape loose over time. That's the biggest difference. And then making sure that these gaps as you wrap are consistent. You only need to cover the last 25% of the prior tape that you laid down. You don't need to cover half of it. And that makes the tape just look really, really well done. As you can see what I'm doing here, I'm just covering the last 25% of the tape. That's all I'm doing. And this tape, I already had pre-cut it, so it worked out to where it's lining up right with my logo. The words Tornova, the T is right there. I'm on the edge of the T. And that's really what you want to do. The reason I do that is for consistency, so when you're done, it just looks nice and clean. These distances are exactly the same. There's a little clamp here for my Garmin holder, and that may make it seem a little off, but it's not. This distance is the same. And so you don't have to measure it if you use that, because they place the logo intentionally equidistant apart on these bars for that very reason. And so you use that as a gauge, and you can see my tape is cut at a 45-degree angle towards the bike. Okay, and so then I'm not gonna cut this guy like I did the other one. I'm just gonna use the tape off of here. I mean, you can cut them if you're more comfortable with it, but it's not a big deal. If you notice, my thumb is still on the tape right up here. I'm holding it in place. I don't want it to unravel. I want it to hold in place. This leather tape does not have a lot of adhesive, and that's one reason I like to use it. You can reuse these as many times as you want if you know what you're doing. A lot of tape that have a lot of adhesive, they leave a mess behind when you take them off the bars. So you can see right now what I'm doing is, like I explained earlier, I'm going to place the tape lined up with the non-cut edge of my bar tape, as close as you can to the edge. The part that you've cut will have a bit of an overlap, but you just find a spot where you can line it up like that. So I've got the tape perfectly lined up so you don't see the electrical tape. That's the goal. You line up with the part that's not cut. You pull the tape, not the vinyl tape right now, you pull your regular tape in place, and then you start your vinyl tape. See, I'm holding it there. I'm gonna bring it over. And what I'm doing is I'm starting it over here, but when I go down, it just pulled off. Let me put it back. When I go down, I'm going to be coming over on that side, close to the bike. So I'm gonna line it up with the side close to the bike as it goes under, because that angle, remember the angle we cut, basically comes towards the bike underneath there. It lines up with the edge of the tape. And so your electrical tape lines up exactly with the tape. And I just keep it on the tape. I'm pulling it. I'm gonna go down 2 times. Still being pulled. And once I come back around, I'm not pulling it anymore. I'm just laying it down, and then I'm gonna stop here. This is why I don't cut it early. I stop right there, and I'm only gonna cut enough of it to where the tape will end up underneath here. I'm gonna let it hang for a while so that so the vinyl can draw back in. I'm gonna cut maybe about, I'd say an inch. That's an inch, because I want the tape to be under here. I'm never under there messing around. You don't want the tape to be on top here, because then you can work it loose when you're riding over time. So you want to cut it to where it ends up under, and that's what I've done. And you can see right there. So I'm just going to let it hang, and once it draws in, it will even pull that tape into place. I'll let it sit there for about anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes is enough. But that's pretty much how you wrap your handlebars. And then while it's doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera over here. See both. I'm gonna put my hoods down. joints are in place. And then I'm gonna put my plug in. Make sure the wording is in the right direction. And by leaving half the tape at the bottom, you just basically push this in. For the leather tape, it's tough because it's very hard. Like, once it gets in there, it's not going anywhere. Boom, that's in. And that's it. And now I'm gonna lay this one down. You can see right there, just lay it down. It just stays in place. And you never have to be bothered with tape unless you damage it. That's it. That's how you wrap your handlebars. Post your comments and questions below. And stay tuned to the channel for more content. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Be safe on the roads. See you at Elder Dot.